call to order the Kearney R-1 Board of Education meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey. Here. Brian Ham.
Yes.
Dan Holloway.
Here.
John Kern.
Here.
Bree Schweitzer. Here. Susan Warman. Here. Mark Kelly.
Here. Quorum being present, entertain a motion.
I move that the agenda be approved as presented.
Second. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Next is tax rate hearing.
I move to set the tax levy for operations at $4.0245 and debt service at $1.1902 for a total of $5.2147, an increase of .003 per hundred of assessed valuation.
Second. Just hold on.
Let me do $10 cents.
It's $4.0245.
Let me do that.
Yeah, if you would.
Move to set the tax levy for operations at $4.0245 and debt service at $1.1902 for a total levy of $5.2147, an increase of .0003 per $100 of assessed valuation.
Sorry. Roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey.
Yes.
Brian Ham.
Yes.
Dan Holloway.
Yes.
John Kern.
Yes.
Bree Schweitzer. Yes. Susan Warman.
Yes.
Mark Kelly.
Yes. Thank you. Next, we have public comment. At this point, we have two individuals who are going to speak. Just one? Just one online. Okay. We had two who had planned. Two. I don't know if there's a way to reach out to them. I want to make sure they have the opportunity, but I believe that those individuals are aware that public comment is limited to 3 minutes. We would ask, because of the other matters that we have to take up, that you would abide by that. We will let you know as you get close, and we'll take it from there. Appreciate you speaking to it. Bear in mind that we cannot address any speaker. We will not address any policies or any other decisions in response to that. Okay. With that in mind, Ms. Farrell?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. First off, I just want to say thank you for just acknowledging the group that came out today. We have all gotten what I think is really good news with a positive announcement from Clay County. I think it's really easy for us to be tempted to sit back and pat ourselves on the back for that announcement, but I feel like it's too soon. We have a lot of work to do in this community. We need to learn to work together as parents and administrators. What I saw as a leader in this community in the rallying of parents was I saw parents and athletes advocating for themselves and their futures. And a future-minded administration, which is what your motto says, would have seen the good in that and wanted to join in on it. Instead, what I saw from your administration was dismissive and threatening. Your athletic director told coaches to discourage their players from attending a rally in their honor tonight. Athletes were told that they couldn't wear their uniforms or Kearney gear to the rally if they attended. They were discouraged from attending a rally that was encouraging them to be able to play, encouraging them to advocate for themselves. People who called the athletic office today was told that the rally was not going to happen and that they should not attend. When your parents rise up together to champion for their children, this administration needs to start paying attention to that and participating in that. We have a really hard year ahead of us together. And the best way to do this is to unify in the name of advocating for the child, the whole child, not just their health physically, but their mental health as well. And you have a group of parents that is ready to cheer you on and support you and be a part of this year with you together, to literally rally, to literally stand outside and say, thank you for your hard work. Thank you for fighting for us, to rally for this school district and say, we are here in support. And what I saw from your administration was not unity. And I want to encourage each and every one of you as you move forward. This issue is not done. Just because we got one piece of good news doesn't mean this issue is over. We still have a fight. We've got a year of fighting for our kids, fighting for their right to education, fighting for their right to play. And we need to see from your administration that you are for that and that you are listening, because we're listening to you and we're ready to rally alongside of you. But we need you to participate and encourage that and be a listening administration. What we've seen from other boards lately is an open forum where they have brought educators, coaches, local physicians, and parents together to communicate. I would love to see that from this administration. I would love to see you open that up and let us come together to make solutions together as a community. We're ready to rise up alongside of you, and we hope that you will become a board that listens and applies. Thank you so much for showing up tonight and for your time and for listening. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Ryan? No?
There's no other.
Although there was another individual who had signed up for comments, they are not showing that they are available to do that. Because of that, we will move on with the rest of our board meeting. Entertain a motion to adopt or consent agenda.
I move that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
All those in favor? Oh, pardon me. Second. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda is on the information item. Okay, information item? Re-entry. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, President, thank you. We have continued to have a lot of work and activity surrounding coronavirus and getting back to school this fall. Just as a reminder, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Probably we're all very aware of that. And I think that our priorities have been the same in the midst of a pandemic as they have been before, which I think is a good thing. You know, first thing is we want to ensure the health and safety of our students and our staff. And our second highest priority immediately following that is the mission of our organization, which is to ensure great learning experiences for our students. So teaching and learning is a top priority. Well, in our meeting to address calendar changes, I mentioned that we had to rethink everything from cleaning protocols to instructional methodology and everything else in between, and that continues to be true. So in the debate over how serious COVID-19 is as a health issue, it continues to rage on right here in our community and across the world. That makes this a more challenging situation when you add in that political dynamic. And you know, it's evidenced by things that we'll see much communication about our just within our community about folks wanting to get back to more of a sense of normalcy sooner and seeing 100% in-person school, full activity. And then on the other hand, we'll see just about as much communication from parents that are concerned about health and safety protocols and whether we have enough in place. So that polarization makes this a challenging issue. So recently, just one of the challenges that we continue to face is the business disruption involved with COVID cases. And so, just to give an example, recently, about a week ago on a weekend, we became aware of a COVID case in our area that impacted some of our programs. And Mr. Schwarzenbach, who's in our meeting today, spent the most part of a Saturday evening and the majority of Sunday tracking down all the connections to close contacts that were involved with that report of a positive case. And then there's the disruption in camps as we move forward with some of the activities that those students would have been in contact with without the good communication from our administrative team and Mr. Schwarzenbach. So and that's when we were on a dead week, we weren't in school, and it was a weekend. So that's the sort of business disruptions that we have seen already. And then as we move forward into fuller activities, more activity in our schools, then that business disruption will potentially grow, whether you're a person that believes that COVID-19 is the most serious health issue ever, or you think it's no more than the common cold. The business disruption and what we have to do with contact tracing, quarantining, and isolation is very significant. So that's a big deal. This is a health situation, and so we have great appreciation for our health officials. We rely on them to help us understand what conditions are safe. We've worked closely with the Clay County Public Health Center and continue to do so. We have worked with KU Med Center, Children's Mercy Hospital. We've had our ad hoc committee, which involved stakeholders from throughout our community that are medical professionals, parents, teachers, administrators, and involve them and looking at some of the challenges that we face, gaining their perspective, and helping ensure that we have a good plan to come back into the fall. And that's been critical for us. We've also looked at national and international organizations, including CDC and the American Academy of Pediatricians. So we've looked at lots of resources to help from a health perspective for us to define and to establish the guidelines for a safe and effective return to school. And I have to tell you that it's been about a month and a half of being officially on the job, and the Kearney community and our KSD team has continued to be amazing. Between, as I mentioned, that ad hoc committee and the participation there and the time that people in our community gave to contribute to our return, to survey participation, to community group meetings as I've gone around as part of my entry plan and met with different groups from Chamber to Rotary to the Kearney Area Economic Development Corporation. All those groups, they're engaging, they're supportive, they have good questions, they have good ideas to contribute. It's been great. Plus, we've gotten a number of emails and phone calls, all wanting to contribute and provide their perspective on how we can effectively conduct school and activities and athletics going forward. So we really appreciate that, and it's helped us be better. Here inside the district, our facilities team has been amazing. I mean, you can just think of everything they've had to do from procuring plexiglass before there was a run on that, and that seems like a simple thing, but it was great forethought on behalf of our district, to sanitation protocols, to air filtration, and everything else that you might think of. They've been doing great work to prepare for our return. Our support staff and teachers, as they've returned this week, that's been some of the best moments of the week, is getting out and seeing teachers participating in professional development, support staff getting ready for people that come back, our nurses getting isolation spots ready in case those are needed. And here's the thing, our staff, they appreciate the challenges that are ahead of them, but they also have this problem-solving, we're going to be able to do this attitude. And sometimes it shifts back and forth, as you might imagine, because this is an overwhelming issue. But repeatedly, what we see is hope and belief that we're going to be able to get things done. And I appreciate that a lot. Our administrative team, I think, has been critical in setting that stage for staff and providing the support that we can, and helping to just set the stage and the climate for that. But the administrative team's been great. And then finally, I just have to thank you, members of the board, that in this seemingly untenable situation, you managed to, through your leadership and governance, you've helped us position ourselves, position our district really well to get back to work. So just I want to thank you for your spot in that as well. So thank you for that. So we have several areas that will be reporting out some additional details about our reentry. And at this time, I'm going to introduce Mrs. Kopp, who is going to give us an update on things related to academics. Remind you, Mrs. Kopp, to speak loudly so it can be heard worldwide on the web.
Okay. Well, our teachers came back this week, and other than the teachers who have been working all summer to help us get ready for this, but officially our teachers returned this week, and they have just hit the ground running. This week we are focusing on our technology professional development, and Ashley Weaver, our technology coach, she has done a phenomenal job putting together the PD for this week. Everybody is getting trained on their platform. They're getting trained on a program called Nearpod, which will help them do both their blended learning and online learning, as well as their classroom learning. I have heard so many comments from teachers. Our teachers are super upbeat, and they just feel like they have them. We're getting very excited to put into play the things that they are learning. Next week, we are really going to focus on that social-emotional piece, because we know that is an important piece. Our teachers are all going to go through a session on teaching tolerance, which is important for us to continue our diversity, equity, and inclusion path. And they are also all going to go through a session, it's called Compassion Without Fatigue, and it is a teacher wellness session. It's going to be about a 3-hour session for us. It'll be great. It will be facilitated by Ricky Moran, who works as our behavior interventionist for the district. She's a licensed social worker, also a professor at Park University for social work. This is going to help we have to remember our teachers, they're feeling a lot of stress right now, and we have to take care of our teachers. So we need to give them tools to be able to function through all this and know when they need to back off a little bit and how to reach out when they need to reach out. Also, next week, Ashley and I are going to work together to make sure we have all of the guidance set up for our online kids, for our blended learning kids, and for our parents. Putting together a document that shows what are the expectations for the teachers, what are the expectations for students, and where do we need help from the parents, because the parents are going to play a pivotal role in that. So we want to get that out to the public so everybody feels comfortable with what we're doing. The third week will be more specific PD for what people are needing. There will be additional tech training for specific needs. Some buildings have some new programs. They'll go through that specialized training for their individual programs. And we are going to be ready to do an awesome job. When September 8th hits, our kids are going to, they're going to get great instruction, regardless of whether they're in person, online, or they're part of the hybrid modality. We are working hard on the academics. We are ready to assess our kids once they come back in. We have an assessment matrix. Our reading intervention set this up. So we have a plan where we will have all of our kids assessed in math and reading before the end of September. We want to get our small groups started. We know that that's going to be critical because we know we're going to have a lot of gaps. Our kids have been out of school for a long time. Some kids, have been working on things at home, and we know some kids have not. So we're going to meet all of our kids where they're at, and we're going to get them to where they need to be. We also know we are not going to give up on that social emotional piece. We know that we've got to work with that also. I don't feel like we have to give up one for the other. We will be giving the social emotional learning assessment very soon after we start school. We have really encouraged teachers to build relationships quick, figure out, spend more time on that at the beginning of the year than you might typically spend, because we don't know what the future holds, and they have to have these relationships built, in case we do end up having to shut down at some point. So we know that that is critically important. So we have our eye on the social emotional piece, and we have our eye on the academic. KSD Connect enrollment, we are sitting at, the latest report was 484 kids who will be full-time online. The elementary plan is we have one dedicated teacher for each grade level of KSD Connect. And at the middle school, yes.
Question on one percentage, about 15%, maybe a little bit more than, is that equal between the number of students that are going to be on KSD Connect? How is that divided between elementary and high school, or secondary?
I can,
If you don't have, it's not a big.
I have all the numbers. I have it by elementary and by high school. And I have it by grade level. It's just I don't have a total of elementary. Dogwood Elementary has 78. Hawthorne has 31. Kearney Elementary has 32. And Southview has 69. The high school total is 127. The junior high is 64, and the middle school has 80.
Thank you.
So for the middle school, what we will do is team will be dedicated. I mean, not fully to that. They will each have class periods that will just be online students, so they will be able to have interaction with those kids. Those kids will have access to those teachers during that time. At the junior high and high school, there will be dedicated classes. For the core classes, there will be dedicated classes. The elective classes, there will be uploaded videos and instruction, and they will have, their access isn't going to be as much. They'll have access through email, and teachers can Zoom after school, but they will not have access to those teachers during the day, and other than the teachers' plan times when they'd be able to help them.
So can we talk a little bit about last spring? It was a makeshift Zoom meeting, part day, not full on education. It was, let's try to keep kids where they're at. Okay, so then this program that we're implementing is going to be way more, we're working on making these kids learn and become better. Or is there like time requirements? Like if we are online, or the 500 kids that are on, are we talking full days for these kids as far as from the school timeline?
Yeah,
or are you thinking that it's going to be a little bit more relaxed?
No, we know we have to be reasonable. We are saying, 5 hours of instruction. We are telling like our elementary, they'll have access to 6 hours of dedicated teacher time. For a kindergartner, that's going to be different. They have so many transitions during their day that it would be difficult for a kindergartner to be online and go through all those transitions with the teacher. Now, even in our in-person, we are really going to focus heavily on the ELA reading and math portion. We are going to do more embedding in social studies and science. So they will always get those core lessons, those reading lessons. They're going to still have small group reading. So a child isn't going to be online all the time. They will have different sessions where their small group reading or their small group math would be taking place. But yes, we are going to keep them going. We've had teams for both ELA reading as well as math that have gone through and they have pulled out the essential standards that we know our kids need to have to be successful at that next level. So, I mean, there's not going to be fluff this year. We are hitting those essential standards. We have the scope and sequence for it. We are going to teach the things that we know these kids have got to have to be successful. And whether they're online or.
So you mentioned the emotional needs of our kids. Do you have any highlights on anything that's changing or additional resources or anything like that within the counselor's offices at the school? I don't know how that's changing for them. I'm just, want to make sure we have the resources and everything there too.
Well, our resources are really going to come from our outside providers. A lot of it is through Synergy. They have dedicated more staff to us. A lot of it through Tri-County. We have some individual outside providers. We have our behavior interventionists. The key for us is identifying these kids. And as I told some teachers the other day, we need them. They are our front line. We need them to keep their eyes open and their ears to the ground, and if they think they're struggling, to get those names to the counselors. We hope to identify many more students through the social emotional learning assessment. But with the Clay County Children's Fund grant, I mean, we have over $600,000 a year to dedicate to these services for our kids. So we just need to make sure we're identifying the kids.
Do we have avenues, so listening to a lot of the parents, I think a lot of the parents really concerned about the emotional aspect of it.
Hey, Brian, can you take off this? I'm even struggling.
Do we have anything in place for me as a parent of the district? I'm concerned that my child is struggling in this area to activate that intervention to help that child. So it sounds like a lot of them are concerned right now, so how do we get their concerns related to the school to get the help they want?
Well, that's a great point. We need to communicate out to our parents to reach out to our counselors, reach out to our social workers. Yeah, absolutely. We need to partner with the families, and we need their help identifying if they think their kiddos are in need of some type of support, whether it's a group therapy that we might be having in school, or if they need something more intensive, more individual therapy. We have it for them, but yes, it is identifying the kids, so we definitely need their help.
We don't have to wait for the school to identify it.
No, absolutely not.
In the spring, we sent out surveys to the children, at least the elementary. I think my kids got a couple of surveys.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing? How are you feeling? Can we send those out to the parents of how
Absolutely.
feel like it was going or how is it going? Along with the even my hope. Really feel like answering them. So,
A question about assessment. You said you're going to try to do the assessments by September. Is that done by teachers particular to the class, or are you doing elementary level? Will that be done at all grade levels?
Our elementary, the different schools have different types of assessments, and our secondary, they'll work more with their, pre-benchmark assessments that they have created. Our elementary, for several years, they've used Games Web for reading. This year we've purchased Games Web Plus, and that will be a reading and math assessment. So all of our kiddos, K through 5, will do the Games Web Plus, and then our middle school, they use NWEA, which is an incredible school.
So Jennifer, looking at the agenda,
Can't hear you.
looking at the agenda, there's a few things we need to approve for you, but, yeah, we're looking at Tri-County, look at all the things we need, for
Thank you for that update. So academics, we started back steps, between academics and social emotional supports. Those are, some of our most important priorities. Right along with that, we have, transportation, food service, health services, and HR. So, Mr. Morrison is going to report out on some of those areas of work.
So I'll start with transportation. We asked in the survey, for one, they ask of the parents if you can help us out because of requirements of wearing masks and trying to physical distance on the bus. If you could bring your kids to school with that, whether it be carpooling or helping the neighborhood or walking to school. So, but we also asked if you need it, please identify whether you need AM or PM. Right now, we're pretty close to about 1,200 on both AM and PM. And realize, too, that we're dealing with the shift with secondary 6 through 12. We have our A and B day there as well. So we are working those out. We are identifying all those kids. Talked with transportation today. They're identifying those routes, so we'll have out next week communication of when the pickup times will be by address. I want to thank Ryan and Tammy because Durham has a routing system called Versatran, and then we needed Versatran to speak with Power School so that we could always know those two systems are talking so we can identify where the kids are on the bus. So that's a big help, and I appreciate Ryan and Tammy helping us with that, as well as Durham. Also, to add with transportation, right now, with like career centers, right now the dedication is that we're going to do 5 days a week because I feel like they will transport those kids. Normally, you know, for example, like at VOTEC, the kids are already there at high school, and so how do we do that with if they're hybrid? Well, if we identify those kids and if they need transportation, we're going to work with those kids to go get them and get them to the career center. So we don't want them to be missing out. If, for example, like Excelsior Springs, they're right now planning 5 days a week. North Lane Career Center, same thing. The Magna, that'll be Casey Tech. Casey Tech, same thing.
On a bus standpoint, we're talking about high schools. If you could. I mean, the bus routes are going the same place every day, whether it's for A through L or K through Z, whatever. But if those individuals, even if we pay mileage for them to drive themselves to and from, it's more costly than paying the bus to drive to them. Are we going to do that on Wednesday?
Pay the kids to drive?
Well, to come to school as opposed to sitting a bus. I don't know whether that's the plan on Wednesday.
We're planning to still go get them because we sell those reimbursable miles because we're taking them to a school program. They're an eligible rider. So everything taking them to that place in the miles, that's all things that they count at.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I apologize. Food service, so they're looking at developing they have a mobile app, they're working on the back end of it so that parents can order ahead of time. It'll probably be more with, obviously, the secondary. But looking at what happens with those kids on the hybrid for the A and B day, when we're talking about, for an example, if they're an A kid and they go Monday and Thursday, what about those meals on Tuesday and Wednesday? So walking out the end of the day that they will provide meals if they want them. And the same thing with a B kid. If he was come in on Tuesday and they needed meals Wednesday and Thursday, they would get that. They get the inverse. So the question may be, what if that kid is a B kid that's on Friday? If they want a meal on Monday, same thing. They'll walk out with that if needed. And right now, DESE has some waivers that allows from flexibility of length of service. Some areas too, as far as what commodity. We're going to fill all those out with SEC. There is legislation or talk legislation what was in the spring of doing the free meals for everyone. there's just talk right now, nothing has been formalized, but a lot of, individuals that are even in the state, Senator or Representative Graves has mentioned that a little bit too. If that's a need, that'd be something that he would support. So those are things that could be forthcoming. If that is, that'd be a case that we would go back to the spring. And if that is, they can also have, a full record. So it's a benefit to us and benefit to the kids. Custodial, today they went through extensive training with Hilliard. Hilliard is our custodial supply company. John Wolk from Hilliard came through today, talked with not only our district custodial supervisor, but all head custodians and representatives from our elementary buildings. I'm talking about the guidelines to follow as far as CDC cards, that they would be always kind of a reminder card to go through back in training. That's going to be then communicated back to the building principals. A lot of those things are the high touch points with this, securing a lot of supplies. There's been some that, for example, like our Clorox wipes, those are tough to come by here in Missouri. In other states, it will be a little bit different. So we've worked some different avenues that we've been more concerned about hand sanitizer, our dispensers, hand-free, without pushing the hands. Those are things that we've really worked to secure. And I have to compliment our custodial supervisor, Jerry Stinger, and Doug Sublett of Maintenance and Grounds. They've done an excellent job. They've been very much in front of all this and looking with the companies and getting these things ordered, because there's long lead times that we couldn't have projected, and I appreciate their foresight to get this and being able to purchase. And that's also helped for Ginger, because she looked at what the funds we had and helping secure that, and really let us work and get those things that we need.
On the supply side, have we gotten supplies for the year, or are we trying to be, 2-3 months worth of supplies at a time? How are we buying the supplies for sanitation, with the new standards that we're working on? Are we buying it all in bulk, trying to buy for the year?
We're trying to prep more. If we can, well, the thing is, we're trying to make sure that we have enough, and we're getting easily through the semester and beyond. I would say that probably as far as hand sanitizer, that we're going to find areas that we're having not only the big gallon pumps, but also individual ones. We're trying to look at different avenues, as many different companies as we can. Early on, we bought the paper masks. We secured 6,000 paper masks. Last week, SEMA had their white masks made by Haynes Company. We got 15 boxes of 400 each. So all the schools have those. Staff that have them. They could. It's also available if kids need them. So there's been a lot of here lately. Some more resources have been available to us than in the beginning of the closure, because I think everybody really was more concerned for first responders getting those things than they were because the schools were closed with that. So, yeah. Thank you. On the health side, all our health staff is back in. They are working to go through the Johns Hopkins course of the contact tracing. There's a lot of complexity to it. And as Mr. Schwarzenbach will talk about, a piece of it is when things happen on campus, we have a lot of things we can look at. We can look at seating charts. We can look at, where they've been scheduled, all that. When it gets off campus, and then we have to go and really investigate and find out who were you in close contact with, and what is the first time you had the symptoms. Now taking back 48 hours, think about that. And then we're contacting with, Clay County Public Health Center, and in speaking with them, they talked about when they have a positive case, they mentioned to us that it could be up to 48 hours before they start their investigation. And that's not a fault of theirs. Some of it is the resources and the availability of staffing. And so for us, as soon as we get a positive case, we're asking those questions. When's the first symptom? Okay? That's when you felt it 48 hours, going back to that and looking at that. And still, we're on a trust factor, right? That they're giving us the accurate information to do all this. So looking at all this detail, and then also contacting Clay County Public Health Center as well. Yes.
What do we have in place, testing for our teachers or staff? Do we have a particular location? And do we know how quickly we will receive our test results? I've heard of testing taking 15 days to get the results. At that point, it's somewhat worthless. I've talked to Kevin Pratt, Chief Pratt, fire station, and they get their results within 12 to 24 hours.
Right.
Do we have a location? I mean, part of it is just for the practicality of quarantining, whether we should or shouldn't be. When we're talking about tracing, we talk about symptoms, but until you know that there's a positive, when do you start? And so that's essential for the tracing part. The other is, if we have a workers' compensation claim, we have somebody who believes that they contracted it from the school, we need to be able to discern that with the information. So I don't know whether music has given us some directives in that context. Do we have that too?
They've given us a little bit on the work comp, but at first it wasn't, that would be a claim. I know that, for example, I know that we had.
I've handled a couple of workers' compensation cases in my time.
Yeah.
I will tell you pretty definitively it is.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're looking at, we work with Work Health Solutions through Liberty Hospital, and we've been in contact with them to see if that's a possibility that we can work with them, because they do our work, not only if there's something with work comp, but also our physicals, for some of our support staff, their report. So that's one of the areas that we're looking to see if that would be a security. But you're exactly correct on the timing of that, and how can we make sure that that's...
And the credibility.
Yes.
Credibility. And to that extent, whether we can't control our students or they have their test done, but if we know of a location that can have it done quickly with good credibility, it would be to our benefit too, especially with sports when we're talking about that. Again, we don't have a right to control it, but we certainly can make suggestions to aid them.
And I think we're soon to see, hopefully, a better, what we call point of care test, a quicker test, a faster test, something we see on site, but, not quickly, definitely working. So, I think all of us do, with our protocol, so something we test about that we call CDC guidelines, return to work guidelines, or, but, that sort of thing, over to pop up, because I know we'll get somebody who tested 14 days out still, so they still need test again. And so, what our protocol was.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're following, but even this week, we've learned from Public Health Center, for example, if you have close contact with the family, there's a 10-day period of that infectious time, and then after that's over, then there needs to be 14 days additional. So if you look at that from the standpoint of somebody, from a staff member being out 24 days, or essentially 3 weeks from instruction, that's a grave concern. And we talk about, the social emotional for the kids, we also for the staff as well, in that piece. And then how do we still effectively run a good education system with that, knowing that they have to be in that situation? Because also, too, as we look at from the Coronavirus Act, there's 10 paid days of emergency paid sick leave, and then...
And if they don't have strong symptoms, there's a strong motivation to not go have a test.
Well, there's also, from an employer side, is that, hey, one back to work now, that sort of thing. I know that sounds strange, but it is. Are you more functional, more moving, that sort of thing. And we don't need another test to confirm, we get back in. But that's even helpful.
So you talked about potential time that a teacher could be out. So for our substitutes, have we asked them which ones are comfortable coming in, which ones don't? We know which ones?
Yeah, great question. That's one of the first things that we ask, because always we looked at those people that we'd like to ask back and retain. And some of them have told us, and they've said, at this point this year, please take me off the list. And so we've done that. So we have an application out there right now, posting out, and we're having people that are still applying. So we're going to add to that substitute list. Now we're looking to see if is it good that we maybe look at substitutes in certain buildings that are assigned to buildings, and looking probably at our most used subs and kind of taking a look at how they're comfortable with that.
Potentially hesitant for somebody to go into other districts and go along with it. And I don't know whether it was on something we disseminated or something I read from another source. Missouri has changed the criteria for substitutes. Now, only 20 hours of college credit. Before it was 60. So we certainly want to put that information out for this year. I think it's a temporary option, but to get substitutes from that.
In addition, DESI also waived the 550 hours on a retiree that's sub. So during this pandemic, that they will be allowed and not be penalized on their retirement if they go over that 550 for subbing at this point. So that's another key bonus because we have former Kearney teachers that come in and sub for us. And so what usually runs a course is in about March. Those hours have run out. And so, sure, they're selected because we want them there and they know how to run the system, I think. But then sometimes there's people that haven't been utilized as much as the sub. They've gotten frustrated a little bit that they're not being called. So it's the good and the bad, right? But then,
are we finding that the folks who are 550 applicants are more hesitant to come back because of being in a higher risk group?
yes, it's mixed. Some are okay with it, but those have been individual conversations with them. And you know, next year at this time, I think they'll join back in. But because it's, again, it's a benefit to us as a district, and I'm appreciative of the board that they earn a little bit more on a daily basis. And I would also credit our nursing staff as well. In Children's Mercy has been an excellent resource, and they said, put our name out there, and they put in training specific for school nurses a couple weeks ago, and said, use these items. And here's some things to look at in relation with health concerns in COVID for not only your staff, but also students. So they have been an excellent resource, a lot of webinars this summer, in utilizing that piece.
Well, there's no end to the complexity of COVID-19 and how to get back to work, back to school. One of the key things that we're learning is that we need to be agile and flexible. And so one of the best things that we can do to be agile and flexible when it comes to learning and learning modalities is to be able to utilize technology. Because it's helpful when it's in person, and be able to personalize learning for kids through some technology resources in a hybrid setting, or through if we're 100% online. Mr. Blankenship has been tasked with that and a lot of other things, and he's going to give an update on how we're doing with that.
So across the district, we've been working to prepare over 3,000 Chromebooks for distribution to students. And as of today, all grade levels have been completed. They're in their cases and everything, except 11th grade, which we completed in the next few days. The process included relabeling, assigning the Chromebooks to students, putting them in protected cases. Buildings are working on plans for distributing those Chromebooks to their students, and they will be communicating that information to their families directly. As you'll recall from the July board meeting, we talked about student insurance. So to be able to take the Chromebooks home, parents and guardians will be required to purchase the district's insurance option at $20 per student, and that's capped at a maximum of $60 per household. The first incident of accidental damage is covered at a $0 deductible, which is an immediate benefit to our family. And then after that first incident, the deductibles are $25 and $50. Families who are eligible for free or reduced price lunch can sign up for the insurance option at $0, and the same deductibles still apply. Later in the week, we'll begin sending information to families regarding back-to-school registration, so they can update their telephone numbers or contacts, that sort of thing. And then along with that, we'll also send information on this one-to-one insurance program and how they can enroll in that.
questions?
You always make it look so easy, and we know what's behind that, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate your hard work.
And something we haven't spent a lot of time with our previous reentry update was talking about, school finances. And so we're faced with some challenges with, less revenue than we were expecting and more expenditures. And so, the Bill is going to provide us an update there.
We experienced, days at home, approximately 1.6 million. Fortunately, Kearney County has provided some funds as well as deputies that we've been able to utilize for things such as our technology. The budget administrators across the district are being extra cautious on making all expenses. Therefore, we're only purchasing what we absolutely need. Their technical or technology, and then for keeping our ground. The big thing I have going right now is waiting for the spray. We have to get some mistakes, plan, the rest of the year.
If you were projecting through the rest of the year, that our reserves, anticipating in what, the 18% range right now, where we are today with projections.
That'd be year for year end,
For the year.
next year.
Could be worse.
That'd be for year end.
That'd be for year end.
It could be worse.
Could be worse.
It could be worse, it could be better, but
Could be worse.
just the way it is now, it's 18%, which is substantially less than what we had.
Would we finish at the end of last?
24 and a half? Will we up that
So
high?
1% is $400,000, is what we talked about a couple months ago.
Right.
So that's what, 2-3 million?
Well, 1.6 if the states are withholding.
That's 4%, yeah.
4%.
Yeah.
Make it.
And then 2% is what we've had to spend over, which, as a district, we did this on purpose to take care of our staff, because that's the right thing. I mean, we're trying to take care of our community here.
That's right. Our
Right.
students be able to teach, absolutely. That's the reason you keep reserves at the level we were. You couldn't anticipate a pandemic like this, but it is for catastrophic costs. And that's what we're dealing with, or lack of income, whether you want, whichever way you want to look at it.
This is the time to do, this is what you say.
We were prepared.
Right.
Let's hope it doesn't continue that way.
So one potential bright spot is the next round of federal stimulus. And when I met with Representative Graves earlier this week, he gave an update on where things were in the House and the Senate in Washington, D.C. He expects to see at a minimum, a $70 billion federal stimulus just for K-12. So we're watching that and advocating that the next round of federal stimulus is allocated on a per pupil basis. As you recall, the first CARES Act went out by title allocation, which means school districts like ours received a very small amount of money per pupil in comparison with districts that have higher poverty, higher free and reduced lunch. However, the pandemic does not make PPE more expensive in a school district with higher free and reduced lunch. So the costs are the same across, and we've been advocating to try to make sure that the next round of stimulus comes out in a more equitable way. Hopeful about that. And so with our CARES funding, we've already spent more on COVID-related expenses that we wouldn't have incurred. Like, these are all things we've purchased that we wouldn't have purchased without a pandemic. And our expenditures have exceeded the amount of CARES funds that we've received from the district. So that's another complicating factor when you're looking at not only are we seeing increased revenues, but we're spending money on things that we wouldn't have.
And I think the articles that we read projected that the district would have to spend nearly, the district of our size would have to spend nearly $2 million to prepare to teach in the pandemic, to accommodate whether it's protections for the students, online learning, everything that goes along with that, transportation as well. So it's not surprising, with that knowledge,
question would be is that, I mean, obviously when you do have a budget crunch, and we're trying to spend on the right things, but we also have to decide to not spend on some things, right? I mean, so that's the flip of the coin, is that we have to be optimistic in our approach, but also cautious, right? And what we're picking to choose. Are we having that discussion, regularly with Ginger, and what we can, that's why I asked the question to Jeff, is are we buying everything we can in bulk and buying it for the year? Or are we trying to do by the month? I mean, is that part of the discussion piece that you guys have?
We've even had that discussion, though, regarding building maintenance.
Absolutely.
And whether we neglect our buildings in the short term and the concerns about the long-term effects of it. And so you can't just be spending or cautious for this year. You have to, we're an ongoing concern. We have buildings, facilities, teachers, everything. We have to recognize what we're doing right now to teach our students as best we can, as well as maintain for the future. That's it.
Ginger shared a great example the other day, because we've had this conversation with all of our budget managers. One of the buildings had been preparing their supply order for the year, and they went back through it all and pared it down and ordered just what they needed to get rolling, and are holding off on other purchases. It takes that collaborative, cooperative approach with our teachers, our staff, our support staff, with really everyone involved, to make sure we're only buying those things that we absolutely need for business right now. And then hopefully later on in the year, if things improve, then we can purchase some other things that we need, but they're not as critical a need as maybe some others.
And I think we all have plenty of toll paper, we'll get it back.
And then, I think if we move away from finance to a point of, I think we've had a really good success with our athletics activities this summer. So Schwarzenbach is here to provide an update on activities that have happened over the summer, and some of our plans going forward.
I think it's been a busy summer, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk to you. Before I continue, I just want to send a shout out to our students, their parents and guardians, our coaches. They worked really hard to provide a safe environment, and I believe that's why we have success. Several activities included, I'm going to go through the list, I got some stats for you. Summer weights, these are the activities. We had summer weights and conditioning in the morning, 18 high school camps, several youth camps, our boys and girls cross country, cheer tryouts and their practice, Golden Girls and their practices, open gym for wrestling, baseball hitting sessions, and throwers practice. Our participation numbers compared to last year, according to the coaches, they either increased or were the same, and that's on average with our student population. So on average, we had 222 students at summer conditioning every morning for 6 weeks. They're off on Friday, so Monday through Thursday. We had around 800 students participate in our high school camps. For youth football, we had 140 third and fifth grade participants, and we didn't do kindergarten, first, and second. Overall, we had a little bit over 1,000 participants this summer activity. Before any of this could take place, we reached out to Clay County Health Department and asked them to review our summer plan. They were great to work with. They sat down with us, looked at everything we did, gave us some advice, and we kind of went from there. We also had guidance from our spur of confidence. Some of those safety precautions we put in place included moving our start date from June 4th to June 15th. We started summer conditioning outside and slowly integrated to weightlifting. Our coaches and directors implemented transitional phases for the practices, and we also used 4 of our practice fields to help create practice cohorts and get our group numbers smaller. All this happened with the other side of it, cleaning part. The equipment was cleaned during groups by our coaching staff and our custodians. We had sanitizing stations at every practice area, and we still do. We identified different access points in our buildings for indoor workouts, so we had certain doors are for entering and other doors are for exiting. And at the end of the day, we had our custodians, Tracy and Rocky. They did a great job of going around and doing a deep cleaning of all the areas, so we would start fresh every morning. Definitely took a collaborative effort, and our coaching staff and our kids did a great job. As far as fall sports, we kicked off fall sport practices on August 10th. And for those of you who don't know, fall sports include girls and boys cross country, girls golf, football, boys soccer, boys tennis, girls volleyball, softball, boys swimming, and cheer and dance. So those all kicked off on August 10th. We plan to kick off junior high sports this coming Monday on the 24th. And then, if you don't know, on the side note, all of our athletes are required to complete 14 practices before they can compete in competition. So the reason for starting junior high sports on the 24th, they can't really start now until September 14th for the first competition. If we move it back to December 8th, we've almost swapped off September by the time. So that's a little bit of the reason behind. Our junior high sports include girls and boys cross country, football and volleyball. And this coming week, we're planning on the 28th, the first home varsity event. We're a field site for the Greater Kansas City Greater Kansas City softball tournament. Their location canceled, so we stepped up and offered our location. And so we're going to host 3 games on Friday and then 3 games on Saturday. And then, of course, coming up next week on Friday, we're supposed to go to Florida State and play football there at 7 o'clock. So that's kind of a summary of where we are right now and moving forward. Any questions?
But I drive by the school nearly every day, and this summer it was really encouraging to see the teams that were practicing outside, the ones that I could see, working in groups, whether it's conditioning or football or whatever, and following all the practices that you guys have set forth. It was really good. So kudos to all the coaching staff on really kind of following all those protocols.
They did.
Yeah.
As we move forward, we also looking at spectators, how many can attend, whether it's a football game on a Friday night, the other events, is that part of it? And with activities, band is part of that too. I mean, how are we coordinating that? How are we anticipating those things?
Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we have a suburban conference meeting with all the ADs, and they're going to provide guidance on that. And I expect them to have limited spectators, and they're going to have a process to try to make it as equitable as possible. I think we have our Tier 1 group. It's going to be, if we're allowed to have spectators, it's going to be our parents. And, we want as many groups as there we can be, but we'll have to wait and see tomorrow kind of what guidance does as well.
But
And with Clay County too, I mean, it's not just the conference. I mean, our board policy says we listen to Clay County, so Clay County is providing us some guidance as well.
Right. What will happen is, I'm guessing, is the Suburban Conference is going to come out with recommendations. If Clay County is more restrictive, then obviously that's the route we'll go. We also want to follow and stay with our conference too to be a unified front. So, assuming they don't go against Clay County, we'll try to narrow what they suggest.
we've got to look for silver lining in this. Maybe we'll get to see a little bit more from the broadcasting group. So see what those kids can do a little bit. I think they'll get a little bit more exposure, and I think that's great for those kids too.
They do a great job. So, we'll find a way, and if it means recruiting parents, and we can only bring a certain number in, we're going to find somebody willing to get an iPad out there and put it on YouTube so everybody can see it. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure everybody knows about it.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
So, going forward, and thank you, Mr. Schwarzenbach, I think we all understand the importance of extracurricular activities, sports, other activities as well. in the school experience and for helping children find a place to belong. That may be different than the classroom for some. Many excel in both on the field and in the classroom as well. So it's important, and I'm very grateful that the new guidance from the health center tonight allows some opportunities for us to be able to continue going forward. There are still some things that are up in the air and subject to change, but I think that we're in a great spot. So the Suburban Conference is also getting ready to vote on whether to proceed with the fall season or not. Based on early straw polling, it looks like the majority of schools and districts in the conference want to proceed with a normal fall season. However, there's still some, a little, much like we've been looking at our guidance and the liabilities and all the complications that would go if we did not follow health department guidelines. There are other counties that are still, the districts are working through that process still. So it'll be interesting going forward. I think just like we have to be flexible and ready to change, in relation to academics, social, emotional, and using technology, I think the same thing's true. Is the season's going to look different this year, but we're going to continue to work to do our very best to make it a successful and exciting experience for our student athletes, including, like, generally, our senior nights are later on in the season. And what are we doing this year, Mr. Schwarzenbach?
We're going to encourage that to happen as quickly as we can. We want to make sure that our senior parents can be there, so that's a priority for us. And hopefully, with the requirements we give, we can make sure that happens.
So there's just some of the little tweaks, and so like I mentioned earlier, the complexity of this situation's unending, and having to really think through every little thing that we've always done or been a part of our system and our process. We have to think about it differently and how we can use the circumstances and maximize that to have to be a good experience for everyone. So, anyway, any questions or comments?
Yeah, only that we all appreciate your dedication to this. This is incredibly difficult, and all the moving parts on it, and the continued revisions that have to go on, and learning as we process it. So the hard work and the time you put in, I just want to say thank you to all of you for that. We appreciate it. Appreciate the updates that you give us. So, and I know things will continue to change throughout the semester, throughout the year. So, thank you all. Next is an action item. First, we have tuition rate. Do we have a motion?
I move to set the tuition rate for the 2020-2021 school year at $9,500.
Second. I thought we needed a roll call. It doesn't say that. You comfortable with that? No roll call? I think I'd rather have a roll call, just to make sure. Roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey,
Yes.
Brian Ham,
Yeah.
Dan Holloway,
Yes.
John Kern,
Yes.
Bree Switzer,
Yes.
Susan Morman,
Yes.
Art Kelly.
Yes. Next, we have advertising agreements.
I move to approve district activities department advertising agreements as presented.
Second. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Next is board policies.
I move to approve board policies as presented on first reading.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. The second has to do with a partial waiver. It has, I don't know if everybody saw that was a kind of a late ad that has to, Dr. Miller addressed it, but it has to do with how many hours a senior has to have in our district to be able to graduate. Is this something that was proposed by DESE, or how did it come about?
Good question. So right now, we have all of our students' parents are examining what their options are and how to position themselves best counseling staff trying to meet needs, come across that run up against our policy that says the 3 credits, in order to earn a KHS diploma, you have to earn 3 credits in your senior year, amongst some other requirements. So that's, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Kopp to carry on the explanation, from that spot. But that's where we're having some students that potentially, they were ready to graduate, that accumulated enough credits. They didn't need 3 credits to reach the graduation requirement. And so that's where the request was coming from. And please add to that.
And some of you were on the board, a few years ago, we actually put the policy in place because what we had were students that they were taking some type of alternative credit and wanting to come into Kearney High School last semester of their senior year, enroll in a class and be able to graduate. And it really had nothing to do with the KHS diploma. It was not a Kearney School District diploma. So we put into place that we wanted them, they had to be a full-time student and obtain 3 hours during their senior year. They had to be enrolled, not a full-time, they had to be enrolled, but they had to obtain 3 credits during their senior year. Well, what we've run into this year, we have kids, and on this waiver, we said they had to earn at least 3 credits their junior year from Kearney High School, and now they don't need 3 credits in order to graduate. They are enrolling online, and they only need 1.5 credits to graduate. So instead of making them fill their schedule up with things they don't need, these are Kearney kids. They have 1.5 credits left, they're ready to get on with the rest of their life, and instead of making them take something they have no interest in addition, filling up our online classes that are already getting pretty full for our online teachers, we feel like it's best for the kids and best for the district to waive that requirement and let them get their 1.5 credits and let them graduate.
This, and to be clear, it is solely what we're voting on, is only for the 2021. And it has a sunset provision. And so unless we voted on it again in the future, it wouldn't be a vote. And part of the reason, and certainly I was here, when we voted on it, was to encourage students to attend and participate if they wanted a diploma from our school. In this case, because of, even if they would be online, there's the practicalities and benefit to a larger group of students if we allow this. And even this is conditioned, as I recall, on Dr. Miller that approved. It's not an absolute. Dr. Miller has to review it, and he makes the ultimate decision. We're giving Dr. Miller the authority to make that decision. So he's going to look at the totality of what's there, whether we should be giving a diploma from our school in that case. Did I say that correctly? Did I cover all of that correctly?
Yeah.
Just, again, for context, why would we consider that? Certainly, if I would tell you in New Orleans, I would be highly opposed. But I think here, benefits outweigh any negative.
The flexibility part.
Yeah.
Yes, and as Ms. Kopp said, because they can do online, but we're already potentially overwhelmed in that context already. And so, at this time, with this year, it's a
How many seniors do you need? Right now, we have 2 classes.
Are you okay with the motion not including that 2020, 2021 school year?
No, I think it needs to say the 2021.
We need to add that to the.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not,
It's not in there?
but I will add it.
Okay.
I move to approve the partial waiver of board policy IKS as presented for the 2020, 2021 school year.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay.
To tie this idea a little bit to market value assets and real world learning. So, one of the shifts that I think that we ought to consider in the future is the traditional model of high school education and education as a whole is really contingent upon seat time and what you can do your time in classes to get your credit. We all know sitting in class for a certain amount of time does not equate rigor or excellence. And I think that's one of the things that the board has set with the goals with market value assets, and that we are looking at as we move forward, is how can we make it more about competency and achievement to show that you're achieving a high standard and that you can get the Kearney endorsement of excellence in the form of a diploma. So I think that's something as well, which doesn't, it's not absolutely pertinent to IKF waiver this year, but just in a mindset change. I think that's one of the things that we should be thinking about as we go forward too. Is should excellence be based on amount of time and speed, or how else could we say that kids have achieved excellence to the standard that we think is congruent to our brand?
Next is resolution regarding the bond series.
Good evening. Do you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is he by telephone or on video?
He's on video.
Okay, so he's gonna have a 15-second delay when he hears anything, so bear that in mind as we speak to him.
Fair enough.
If anybody wants to, I don't know whether you pulled it up, you can go to the board website and you can pan to see, I can see, for instance, and you can toggle back and forth if you want to watch us on video. It may make it easier to hear from Todd. Todd, I apologize on that, but it's easier to see Todd since we don't have him projected if you want to do that. But it's going to the Kearney School District website, and I think it was at the top of the page with it. Actually, I think I went on the Board of Education, and then Board of Education was on the right side of the first page.
Okay, so Todd, you're in about, you have a delay, I don't know if you heard all that, but you're delayed about 15 seconds. So, if you go ahead and introduce, what our opportunity here is with this item and the resolution that's being presented to the board, this evening, and then I'll be quiet for 15 seconds and you can get started.
Okay, no, that sounds good. I'll go ahead and begin. Each summer about this time, we do assist the district with setting the various tax levies, and what this resolution is related to specifically is the debt service levy. And so the $1.19 has been in place for several years now, and the calculation that Ginger goes through, we won't bore you with those details, but it's a very detailed calculation that takes into account the balance in the debt service fund. It looks at the debt service that will be paid over the next 2 years for the general obligation bonds. And there's a few other line items on that form. And so in going through those calculations this year, we've identified that there are some additional dollars in the debt service fund that can be used to repay a portion of a 2009 series of bonds. That will do a couple things. One is, since those bonds are currently callable, it will allow the district to basically save interest costs instead of paying that interest on those bonds out through 2025. It would basically cease to exist right away in September. The other part of this is it allows the district to continue to impose the debt levy at the $1.19 level, which was discussed earlier tonight in the tax rate hearing. And that rate would be able to be in place going forward as it has in the past.
Anyone have specific questions for Todd about that? Or questions about whether we should do it?
So primarily this is, we're paying our debt down faster.
Right.
I mean, I'm just gonna simplify the whole lot of language, and you've got new board members, so maybe we wanna discuss a little bit about, you know, what this is and what the end goal is of this. I say end goal, it's probably the wrong word, Mark. What it can help us do moving forward.
Sure. Todd, did you hear John and his comments on that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Do you mind addressing that, explaining, and I don't remember how many series of bonds that we have today, and then how, in the context of those different bonds that we have, how does this benefit the district?
Right, and he's certainly accurate in his initial description of this. You're just simply taking money that is in the debt service fund and you're using that to pay bonds off early. So that's really as simple as it is. The benefit is twofold. One, you're avoiding about $150,000 of interest costs on the portion of bonds that are going to be repaid early. So that's benefit number one. Benefit number two is it allows you to maintain an even debt service levy at the $1.19.
And Todd, could you speak to also the future benefit of where we have our ability to borrow and bond to our capacity for future projects?
Yes, so there has been some kind of real long-term planning, kind of looking out 5 to 10 years as we do each year with that debt service fund. And so we do believe that within the next few years that the district is very well positioned to be able to go back to the voters like we did a few years ago with a meaningful bond issue that could be done as what we call a no tax increase bond election. So additional bonds can be voted in the future and issued and repaid all within the constraints of the existing $1.19 debt levy.
The other part of that, Todd, is what percentage of our total budget can we bond against?
Right, good question, Mark. So under the state constitution, and this is applicable statewide, so districts are able to borrow 15% of the assessed valuation is the maximum capacity. So as your assessed valuation continues to grow, as you pay bonds off on a regular basis, as well as in this case where you're paying bonds off early, all that helps to increase the maximum debt capacity that you have going forward.
And assessed valuation is to go a step farther, assessed valuation would be as your school grows, more students, or also your value of your buildings?
No, it's not any of those. It's the school district, what the assessed valuation is of the school district, not
Okay,
not our
that's what
direct budget. I misspoke initially when I said it, but it's what the assessed valuation is of,
Houses, commercial property,
All of that,
real
yeah.
estate.
right, yes, not the district. I mean, not the district proper, it is the entire district. You look within the boundaries. Did I say that right, Todd?
Yeah, basically, I'd describe it as the tax base.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? Does that help, Bree, Brian, understand why we do this? I mean, it's the ability to bond further. I mean, as we are anticipating the need for another elementary school, I mean, we are bringing up dollars and the ability to do that without raising taxes. Not necessarily, no. That's something that's available to us this year. We don't do this every year. No. Sometimes we do. It depends on tax rates and what our abilities are to pay. Paying some down now, it's taking some money to pay for that, but we're saving. It's like paying off your car early, so you don't have, or your house early, so you don't have to keep paying the interest on it, which eats into that.
We have a system in place to evaluate every year. Determine what we're supposed to do.
Right, right. And to assess whether it's financially advantageous.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you all.
Anyone else have any other questions?
Good night.
Entertain a motion?
I move to approve resolution for bond series 2009A as presented.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. All right. KSD Connect teacher position. Do we have any questions on that? I mean, it's something we need to have. Everybody have an opportunity to read it. If you don't have questions,
I'm
Okay.
interested in how we see this working right away once we approve it. How many people we see doing this? We've kind of already identified these people, more on the elementary side, on section, that really want to make sure that we have a good job description that fits for the online format. For that. On the secondary side, then we've been able to adjust for what they're doing in their schedule to provide that. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, and we've had, talks with some teachers, their building administrators did, and, these teachers have been awesome, and they pretty much said, well, do whatever the district needs us to do. And they've really stepped up.
any other questions?
I'd just add that this helps create clarity for something new. And so rather than our teachers wondering what exactly is expected of them, then I think that Mr. Morrison and Mrs. Kopp and others have helped define what we can expect. So it's mostly unknown, but now we're starting to develop some clarity and to help support our teachers as they get into these roles.
Not hearing any other questions, entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve addition of KSD Connect teacher position as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Next is board member comments. I hear from board members. I know everybody is receiving phone calls. This is a tough time for new board members. I mean, it's a learning process in the middle of a pandemic. So I appreciate that. And, I've had more calls, more conversations, and more discussions this year, than the last few months, than in years before. Okay? And there's lots of reasons for that. Hang in there, answer the best you can. Remember, we need to work as a team whenever possible, and look at it that way. You're not out there alone. There's always somebody to talk to and discuss with. it's on board. So, and I'm not talking to you guys individually. Okay. I get it.
He's looking at me too.
I get it from other folks. All right, so don't feel that way. I know it's, we all in that. And these are tough times. I mean, listen to everybody here.
I'd just like to add that, with the flexibility and the ever-changing everything, there's opportunity in that. And I told Dr. Miller this earlier, that we're also getting to rewrite or relook at how school is done for the next 50 years, and in the middle of a pandemic. So we have some great opportunities. It sounds like we have some really excited teachers that are working really hard. So I'm trying to find that silver lining myself, in that there's a lot of great opportunities for our kids, for our teachers, for our community, and that we have to remember not lose sight of that great opportunity, which is we're shaping online learning, we're shaping authentic learning. There's a lot of great things happening, and the pandemic can bear you down, but for me personally, I'm excited for our new challenges in the classroom, online, in fall sports, all those things, right? And so I just wanted to say to the board that, it is tough, right? Being new, it's tough, right? But this is a good group, and we care about our kids. And that's the great thing.
I just want to say, I think the hard part for me is the reason why I shared that I traveled, and I think I may have sent a voice or a text or like that, but for many of us, not all of us, I don't know, but I know some of us who grew up in a small town or hometown or have that hometown feel, kind of like John saying, I was out east, I was in North Philadelphia, Pittsburgh here, just a couple weeks ago, and, I mean, some of these, their Facebook is taking place, I mean, some of these, that's where they're just going, is just online, period, and so, why I'm excited about that, being a techie and that sort of thing, the other part of me definitely wants to keep the roots in the ground over what we are as a community. So, yeah, but I guess then everybody's going to get everybody's done, make the connections with people outside, finding outside resources and bringing it in. And that goes Dave's board. Also, I want to Rocky and Tracy for graduation. I think everything they did as a custodial, even down to that level, there was something else extra, they went above and beyond to try to cover things. And I thought, wow, that's just, this is so, yeah, from all.
I think you're right with the number of calls and texts we've received as of late. But I want to thank everybody in this room and other staff members of the district, as well as community members, for all of the encouragement they've also sent. It's not all complaints. It's people calling and texting and saying, I know this has got to be hard, and we are with you and we support you. So you have no idea how much that has been appreciated.
I want to say that I've been asked many times if I regret my decision to participate in this.
I bet.
Never once do I regret it. I never expected it necessarily to be an easy role. I don't know that I expected to jump into this seat so quickly. But I think one thing when I step back, there's so much emotion involved in so many aspects, and when I step back and look at it, we are so lucky that, every other normal year, we don't get to realize just how badly students and parents actually want to be in the classroom. And that is an amazing, if we step back from all the emotions, that is such an amazing thing. It says so much about our administration, our teachers, they want to be there, so that's awesome. And I think that's a really good thing. Again, when we remove the emotions from it, that's such a wonderful thing.
Important dates. August 17th through September 4th, ongoing teacher work days. September 7th, no school every day. September 8th, first day of school. Woo! September 16th is our next board meeting. See how it's all going then. That's right. Okay. All right, entertain a motion.
Ask for a closed session to immediately precede the regular meeting in September, including any record or votes to discuss items and issues allowable under section 610021 of the Missouri Sunshine Law.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey?
Yes.
Brian Ham?
Yes.
Dan Holloway?
Yes.
John Kern.
Yes.
Bruce Switzer. Yes. Susan Morman.
Yes.
Mark Kelly.
Yes.